Students, in lesson 3.7, we are going to estimate decimal sums and differences. So remember, when we think about sum, we have to think about the answer in addition, and when we think about difference, we think about the answer in subtraction. So the essential question that we want to solve by the end of this lesson is how you can estimate decimal sums and differences. We're going to start with the real world, unlock the problem, and we are going to read about the problem together so we can understand how to solve it a little bit better. A singer is recording a CD. The lengths of the three songs are 3 and 4/10 minutes, 2 and 78/100 minutes, and 4 and 19/100 minutes. About how much recording time will be on the CD. So boys and girls, our first strategy we're going to do is use rounding to estimate. So we're going to bring back some of the skills that we learned in previous lessons to this one. So boys and girls, we're going to look at our number. It says to round to the nearest whole number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to circle 3. I'm going to look next door. 4 is less than 5. So we know that 3 is going to stay the same. Again, boys and girls, I'm going to look at my other numbers. I'm going to look at 2, and then I'm going to look next door. Now, next door I see 7. 7 is greater than 5. So I know that I'm going to round the 2 to 3. And then finally, boys and girls, I'm going to look at my 4-digit and then look next door, and I see that 1 is there. Well, 1 is less than 5, so we would round the 4 and leave it by itself to be the same. So now, boys and girls, we can see that 3 plus 3 is 9. No, hopefully you're still listening and thinking about it. 3 plus 3 is 6, plus 4 is 10. So boys and girls, there will be about 10 minutes of recording time on the CD. And I just want us to remind ourselves as we continue through this lesson some things. Where we worked on this, and I kind of reiterated some of the strategies we used before, but just this isn't a bad idea to start to regroup and try to really focus on tightening these skills up before the end of the chapter. So it says to round a number, determine the place which you want to round to. In this problem, they said to the nearest whole number, so we know that meant the ones place. It says if the digit to the right is less than 5, the digit in the rounding place stays the same. But if the digit to the right is greater than 5, the digit rounding place increases by 1. So now, boys and girls, we are going to try this, and we're going to use some rounding to estimate. It says round to the nearest whole dollar, then subtract. So again, it says the whole dollar, so boys and girls, I'm going to go in here and I am going to underline the ones place in both of those problems because those are the digits I'm going to round to. So I'm going to circle the 7 and I'm going to look next door. 7 is greater than 5, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to round that 7 to be an 8. So in this problem, our estimate is going to be 28. Remember, the 8 is changing because when it says to round to the nearest whole dollar, that's the number we're going to round, either up or stay the same. Now, boys and girls, I'm going to look at $11.72. Circle the 1, and I look next door. Well, the 1, we look next door, we see the 7 again. 7 is greater than 5, boys and girls. So that 1 that we circled is going to become 12. Now, I want to make sure that we use our dollar signs, so let's put those out there. 8 minus 2, boys and girls, would be 6. 2 minus 1 would be 1. So the estimate says $16. So to the nearest dollar, $27.95 minus $11.72, our answer should be about $16. Now in strategy B, boys and girls, we're going to round to the nearest $10. So now, boys and girls, because it says $10, we're actually going to look at the tens place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to circle the tens place here, and I'm going to look next door, and I see that there's a 7 there. Well, we know that if we look next door, boys and girls, we know that 7 is greater than 5. So we would round that 2 to be a 3. And then remember, we're going to report a 0 in the ones place. Now, boys and girls, we go to the next problem. We circle the 1 in the tens place and we look next door. 1, boys and girls, is less than 5. So we know that that would stay the same. So that's going to be a 1, and we're going to use a 0. And boys and girls, just if you think logically, $30 is pretty darn close to $27.95. $10 is also very close to $11.72. So to the nearest $10, $27.95 minus $11.72 is about, oh, boys and girls, Miss G forgot her dollar signs. Hopefully you will not do that as well, is about $20. So make sure that you also report that it's $20. So boys and girls, it says, do you want to overestimate or underestimate when you estimate the total cost of items you want to buy? So now when you're talking about buy, you would want to think about money. Really important, boys and girls, you always want to overestimate. You never want to get to a store and say, oh man, I don't have enough of money. If you overestimate, you will always have enough of money. If you underestimate when it comes to money, you're not going to have enough. So you would say, I would want to overestimate to make sure I had enough money to buy the items. So remember, when you're dealing with money, you always want to overestimate when you go to the store. You don't want to underestimate, because if you underestimate, you won't have enough money to buy all the items, which would be kind of a bummer. So now, boys and girls, we are going to bring in that vocabulary word, which was benchmarks at the beginning in our vocabulary builder. Hopefully you still are going back and looking at those vocab words and you're regrouping them in and putting them into your math vocabulary for chapter 3. So it says use benchmarks. Benchmarks are familiar numbers that are points of reference. You can use the benchmark 0, 25 hundredths, 50 hundredths, 75 hundredths, and 1 to estimate decimal sums and difference. And boys and girls, remember what we've been talking about all chapter. $0, 25 cents, 50 cents, 75 cents, and $1. Use it and think of it as though it's money. So it says example 1, use the benchmarks to estimate 1800s plus 4300s. Locate and graph a point on the number line for each decimal and identify which benchmark decimal is closer to. So boys and girls, if we look at this, boys and girls, we can see that 1800s is going to be greater than 0 but less than 25 hundredths. And then, boys and girls, if we look at 3400s, 3400s would be greater than 25 hundredths but less than 50 hundredths. So I'm going to give this the point over there. Now, boys and girls, it says think 1800s is between 0 and 25. So I would say that as a benchmark, if you look, it's really close here to 2500s, so I would use that as my benchmark. Now, boys and girls, over here it says think 4300s is between 2500s and 50 hundredths. I'm going to fill this in too, just so we don't leave anything out. So if I look at it visually, boys and girls, I would say that this decimal is closer to 50 hundredths. So we'll use that as our benchmark. So we're going to use 25 hundredths minus 50 hundredths. So, oh, it's not subtraction, it's addition actually for this problem. We did subtraction in the previous one. So boys and girls, the thing that's awesome about this is just think of it like money. 25 cents plus 50 cents is 75 cents or 75 hundredths. So if you think about it, 1800s plus 4300s is about 75 hundredths. And remember, it's all estimation. There's no actual answer because we're doing just estimates in this lesson. Now, boys and girls, example 2 says use benchmarks to estimate 76 hundredths minus 22 hundredths. So what we're going to do is we're going to locate and graph a point on the number line for each decimal. Identify which benchmark each decimal is closer to. So we're going to go on to the second example. We're using subtraction. So for 2200s, boys and girls, 2200s, I would say, is a little bit off of the 2000s marker. So 2200s is right about there. So think 2200s is probably visually, if we look closer, it's really closer to 2500s here. So now on our second decimal, 7600s, boys and girls, 7600s, think about it, it's like 76 cents. Well, that's just like 1 penny more than 75 cents. So if 7600s is between 7500s and 1, if we visually look at the number line, it is closer to 7500s. So 7600s is like 7500s minus 2500s. And just think, you have 3 quarters, you subtract 1 quarter, you get 2 quarters, or 50 hundredths. So remember, boys and girls, all of the problems in this actual lesson were estimates, and we used several strategies. We used benchmark numbers. Remember, our benchmark numbers look a lot like our money. 0, 25 hundredths, 50 hundredths, 75 hundredths, and 1. So we did benchmarks in subtraction and addition. And then we also just used rounding as well. So those are the 2 strategies that you really need to know and harness from this lesson.